Order. Question number 4, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all the Prime Minister's statements?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, yes.
Mr. Speaker,
supplementary question, Honourable
does he
David
stand
Cunliffe.
by his statement that, quote, the government believes there is no cause of action, close quote, to help compensate the Pike River families?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I stand by the full statement in the context in which it was made.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, why won't his government pursue the parent shareholder of Pike River, New Zealand Oil and Gas, which has received $42 million in insurance payouts since the company incurred the disaster, and has a moral obligation to contribute to the compensation of the Pike River families?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the government has no legal means of doing so. There may be extra legal means, and that might be what the member should explain, as I understand it, has announced that he will pursue the company if he's the government. He needs to explain just on what basis he would do that.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, is the Prime Minister aware of whether ACC and the New Zealand Superannuation Fund were among the New Zealand Oil and Gas shareholders who voted against paying compensation?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, no, I'm not aware of how they may or may not have voted on that matter.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
May be able to help the Prime Minister. Given that 99% of the shareholders of New Zealand Oil and Gas voted against paying compensation, given that ACC owns 6% of it and the super fund owns 1.2%, has he been able to work out whether they voted for or against, or perhaps ask them whether they voted for or against compensation?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, I would want to look into the facts of the matter rather than rely on the member's assertions.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable
Mr.
David
Speaker,
Cunliffe.
why, when Solid Energy has been paid $1.2 million of the insurance money when none was paid out to the families, has the Prime Minister taken no action in respect of Solid Energy, which the Crown owns?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm not exactly sure what connection the member there is trying to draw. I think we need to keep in mind here. We need to keep in mind that in the case of Pike River, we have seen a real tragedy which has created real suffering for those families. I think every member of Parliament would find that week to week they also are dealing with families who have suffered real tragedy, although not in such large numbers. And the question that the member is opening up is the obligation of the Crown to deal with all of those cases in the way he's suggesting we should deal with Pike River.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, given that in this particular case 29 miners are dead, a Royal Commission has found one of his ministries partially culpable for failing to close the mine, when the minister responsible has resigned, when a court has ordered compensation, when the parents of the company now in receivership have refused to pay that compensation, when two Crown entities which are ultimately answerable to him through their boards have voted against the parent paying compensation, and when yet another Crown entity has received insurance payouts and refused to contribute a cent, has the government honoured all of its moral obligations to the Pike River families?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the answer to that question is yes, in the same way, in the same way that the government honours its obligations to every single family in New Zealand that suffers from a death in the workplace or a death by accident or lifelong disability. Any government has to keep in mind the hidden as well as the high-profile tragedies.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Why did he say last Thursday that no immediate sale of Air New Zealand shares was planned and that he hadn't received any advice on the sale when he must have known the sale process was going to begin in less than 24 hours?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, he said it because it was correct. The decision that Air New Zealand would be sold at some stage has actually been signalled 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And the final decision to proceed with the transaction was made on Friday last week.
Mr Speaker, is the Prime Minister...
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Is the Prime Minister aware that a day before that statement, the Australian Financial Review and the New Zealand Herald were carrying initial reports of the imminent sale of the airline? And why does he think it's fair that the so-called Kiwi mum and dad investors were kept in the dark by their own Prime Minister until Sunday, while at the same time insiders, share brokers and institutions were being told the opposite as early as the Wednesday prior?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the member is simply wrong. Well, he is. There are a complex set of rules passed by this Parliament just recently that govern the procedure around this sort of sale. And the government has stuck to it, and the member's allegations about the Prime Minister misleading people are simply wrong.
Question number 5, Right Honourable Winston Peters.